I'd like to thank Jeremy Beer, John Bertka, James Ante, and the entire American conservative family for inviting me to present the inaugural Russell Kirk, well, not Russell Kirk, but Russell Kirk's Conservative Mind Award. Published 66 years ago this month, the Conservative Mind demonstrated that a vital and respected conservative tradition was central to the American experience. In 1953, the New York Times book reviewer wrote, "The author of The Conservative Mind is as relentless as his enemies, Karl Marx and Harold Lasky, considerably more temperate and scholarly, and in passages of this very readable book, brilliant and even eloquent." As a result of this review, Russell liked to joke that he got his job through the New York Times. That fat book, along with Russell's other books, continues to influence people around the world to this day. Just last year, translations of the book were published in 5 foreign languages. In addition, a few weeks ago, Regnery published a slim book that has not been in print since 1957, and it's now titled Russell Kirk's Concise Guide to Conservatism. Due to the critical acclaim of The Conservative Mind, Russell took up his pen as an independent man of letters and settled in his ancestral village of Mecosta. Mecosta is in Michigan, and there it was for many years that Russell and I resided throughout our 30 years of married life. So where are we on? 729 Main Street. So I can especially appreciate the American conservatives' emphasis on the renewal of main streets. We lived on one all our lives. After Russell passed away in 1994, many people encouraged me to formalize the work we had done in Mecosta by creating an organization that would have the purpose of transmitting the conservative tradition that Russell labored to reinvigorate to new generations. And so the Russell Kirk Center was formed to continue to hold seminars for students and to host residential fellows. The center's flagship journal, the University Bookman, which Russell founded in 1960, is now thriving in an online format under the able editorship of Gerald Russello. In recent years, the center has added new programs, including Kirk on Campus, which held its debut in 2017 at Hope College before 700 people. That was our first event, and there were 700 people, so you can imagine the encouragement we felt. I was particularly appreciative that Ross Douthat spoke for our panel discussion on that occasion. Thus, it was wonderful to learn that the American Conservative was establishing an award for writers under 40 who reflect an understanding of the permanent things and the moral imagination, and that Ross was to be the first recipient. Tonight, we recognize this accomplished and influential young writer who understands the religious and not merely material dimensions of conservatism. His thinking is nuanced, informed, and imaginative. In books ranging from education, or political analysis, reflections on how to win the working class, and importantly, on American religion, Ross has demonstrated why this award was that he is to be the first recipient of this award. Not yet 40, he is already one of the leading culturally conservative voices of his generation. His influence and wisdom is on display regularly in his New York Times columns and through his other writing and speaking engagements. In this time of dissension in our country, not only among progressives, but also among conservatives, it is a blessing to have such a writer with years ahead of him so ably articulating those societal issues that will determine our future as a civilization. I know Russell would not only admire, but also learn from Ross. It is with great pleasure that I present Ross Douthat with the first Conservative Mind Award.
In case you can't tell, this is incredibly, amazingly heavy. I apologize, I have a slight cold, but happily I only have to speak for 5 minutes as opposed to the Il Duce-esque 2-hour rant that I know JD has prepared for you later on. But I want to thank first Annette for that incredibly kind, those incredibly kind remarks, which made me feel incredibly young. In fact, I'm 39 years old, so I am just under the cutoff. And as I approach my 40th birthday, I treasure every moment where someone mentions my youth and inexperience. So that's a wonderful thing. The size and heft and imposing dignity of this award is also a wonderful thing, mostly because I have 3 small children. They are 8, 6, and 3, and their father has never received an award, and they were a little bit incredulous that a national magazine as distinguished as the American Conservative, which of course they've been reading since they were in diapers, would be giving me an award, and I was sort of assuming that I would bring them home some sort of small lucite plaque, and they would roll their eyes dismissively, as small children tend to do. But I think that this will impose a kind of Mr. Banks in Mary Poppins style, early 20th century Edwardian England discipline and order on my house. So I'm incredibly grateful to the American Conservative for having provided it. Let me say something brief and serious that is relevant to both Russell Kirk and the project of the American Conservative that we're here to celebrate tonight. I'll quote a famous Marxist historian, Eric Hobsbawm, who coined a phrase, the invention of tradition. The invention of tradition is a phrase that can be used pejoratively as a kind of cudgel against conservatism, a way of saying, look at all your links to hoary antiquity are just invented to serve the needs of the present. But I think it can be used in a complementary way, because really all of conservatism exists in a kind of participation and even cooperation between the present and the past. And a large part of what conservatives do, what conservative intellectuals and writers and leaders try to do, is take from the past a story that doesn't contain the complete truth about the past, because no story possibly could, but contains real truths that have real relevance for the present day. I read Russell Kirk's The Conservative Mind a very long time ago, but last year I got to co-teach a course on conservatism at Yale Law School, like the New York Times, another fine conservative institution. And one of the great things about teaching a course is that you get to assign a lot of books that you either have never read or haven't read in a long time. And so we assigned large chunks from the conservative mind, large pieces about especially 19th century American writers. And so I got to read them for the first time in a long time. And what was so striking about what Russell Kirk achieved in that book was the extent to which he invented a tradition in the best possible sense of the term. He took something real, a real current in American history and American life that had been forgotten or ignored or never fully conceived of, and brought it to life in a way that deeply influenced the nascent conservative movement of the 1950s, and through that influence helped reshape American politics and American culture for the better in a lot of different ways. And I think that's a really useful way to think of the project facing conservatives today. I agree with Johnny's comments at the beginning that this is a period of real intellectual ferment in American conservatism. It's a moment when a lot of the stories that conservatives have been telling since the 1950s and 1960s, or since the end of the Cold War, don't seem to quite work anymore. And there's a need for a new story in certain ways, a new invention of tradition, if you will, that reaches back into the past and tells a story about American history that connects intimately to the challenges of today and sets the stage for the next chapter in our national life. And I think that's the task that the American Conservative has been committed to since its founding. It's the task that Russell Kirk's work offers us an example of how to carry out. and it's the task that I would invite all of you to do your part to participate in going forward. So thank you all so very, very much.